Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me today for today's webinar, From Good to Great and 5 Steps to Improve Your AP Processes. So whether you're watching this live or on demand, welcome to everyone. My name is Jack Wright, and I'm the Sales Director here at YourDMS, and I'll be your host today. Not like our other webinars where we've brought guests on. Today I just thought I'd do a run through just with myself. So unlucky or lucky, I don't know what depending on what you feel about that. So just a bit of little housekeeping here before we start. If you do have any questions, obviously if you're watching this live, if you do any questions during the presentation, then please type them in the question box, which you'll see on your control panel. And I've got Sadie monitoring them, and we'll answer them at the end. If anything on demand, you can drop us an email. The contact details will be available as well on this recording too. So as I said, my name is Jack, and Sales Director at YourDMS, and I'll take a moment to tell you a bit about us and what we do through the webinar. So we've got just another thing as well, we've got some handouts as well for you, so free brochures, free best practice guides. We've got some an AP fraud infographic, and we've also got an AP solutions brochure. So I'm going to tell you a bit about why we've done this webinar and why we've called it what we do. So it's probably kind of a weird thing for people to read, but why we've done it like this is as document and data management solutions providers like ourselves, we like to put a positive spin on most things. So on everything we can, we like to put a positive spin on processes. So instead of saying the majority of businesses' processes are bad, or other negative words like mistakes when you go to digital transformation, or the words that you might hear from a negative perspective, we like to say that they are good, because technically everyone's still making money. They're good processes, but with subtle or large tweaks, depending on where you're at, they can be great. So we've spoken to lots of businesses about their processes, and what we've found the majority of the time is that their existing processes are good, and they're managing to get the work done, so making profits, as I've said. But we can also make those few changes and some improvements, whether that be with their current technology, whether that be with personnel, whether that be with anything that you can think of that I can discuss a bit further on down in the webinar. We can also help them move that from, as we said, the good to the great. So if you're ready to improve your process, which hopefully if you're watching this you are, here's what we're hopefully going to give you some hints and tips now to change that going forward. So slides. So this slide is about building on what you have already. Okay. So what does that mean? So we already know your existing processes are good. Your team are good. You're getting your invoices processed and paid with the right help and approach. They could be great. Okay. So with that, there, like I said, there is a big but there. So it could be great with a little help. So stand out firefighting battles with preventing fraud that we always have to do in the AP department, chasing for purchase orders and invoice approvals as an example, ensuring goods are booked in. That's also a big thing. So if you've got different so you've got like a warehouse or whatever it may be, you're constantly chasing them whether they've booked in the goods, and chasing for those all important delivery notes to be stored against the purchase order and invoice. And a big one I'm seeing at the moment is payment run approvals, where a lot of businesses I'm talking to at the moment are doing it via email. You know, so that we all know with an email, I mean, you could get 80 over 100 a day. Some people. And within there could be an approval process that you need to do for payment runs, and they need to be checked across each other. And especially with a hybrid way of working, people will be working from home and also in the office. So I've worked with businesses that have managed to reduce those approval days from 15 down to 5 days, just by having the document accessible, clear instructions, or of whatever's needed, and it's obviously easy to use. But by putting these business rules in place, we're able to be scaling for like now and also future proofing. So just as we said, those small tweaks from potentially moving the payment approval process, as I alluded to earlier, into a workflow, if you like, rather than using your emails, can make a huge impact for the next 2, 5, or even 10 years plus going forward. Okay, so by working from the ground up, as you can see with these elements, so identifying the problems, so building on what you already have in terms of process, by working from the ground up and looking at those manual elements, we're able to help people become, or businesses become, more streamlined. And the old saying is bad processes plus digital equals bad digital. Okay, so you can't just put a bad process, a manual process in place into a digital platform, because it will still be bad. You've just changed the tack, whether that be manual or digital. Okay, the next one is get data savvy. Okay, so data savvy really means there are, and what probably a lot of people out of the accounts payable department don't realize is really highly driven with data. Okay, so you've got data from suppliers, you've got data for nominal code data, cost center, stock, if you're keeping stock, and the list goes on. So by looking at the data and identifying those suppliers who you are trading with or likely to be in the next year or so, because we all have times where the supplier you might be dealing with in January, but you might not deal with them again until the November of that year, will help. So by identifying those areas, you can help new and existing employees reduce mistakes. So by potentially paying the wrong supplier or fraud or whatever that may be. Okay, so the classic ones we are seeing the difference in the variations is do not use. So everyone's probably laughing at me right now with the sense of do not use next to a supplier. So that might come in the form of a bracket. So say YourDMS, do not use, uppercase, lowercase. They might have an exclamation mark by them. And I can, as I said, I can imagine you can, most of the account payable departments that we certainly deal with can definitely relate to that. But by removing them, if you don't use them anymore, by creating an area where they're not in the system at all, will reduce those errors. And it's just as simple as I always say to the people I've worked with: is bad data in, bad data out. You need to have accurate data for making decisions, and that will then help with even further down the line when it comes to reporting, supplier information, and becoming more automated and sort of tech savvy, if you like, from that perspective. Power up your people. So empowering people should be the name of the game for any department / business, in my opinion. In my experience with the AP department, are full of enthusiastic people looking to improve. Often processes and other areas of the business stall this growth, and then it leads the AP department, excuse me, doing other jobs, which we did an actual social media post quite recently, and it was titled "The Hidden Workflow of Accounts Payable," and it had sort of hats. So a person with hats on, so loads of different hats. And the idea of that is to show how many different roles an AP department or an AP professional actually undertakes across a day, a month, a year, or even their career. So things like data entry, becoming a receptionist as well, tea and coffee maker, problem solving, learning new tech, because we all know improvements of especially finance systems as well, and the different bolt-ons you can get from that, learning new tech and businesses changing their approach to things, and that was what I said with the idea of the different hats. So back to giving the people the power to work with these technology and process experts such as YourDMS ourselves, to turn these ideas, these pain points, into processes that can work for the entire business. And I was recently in a meeting where I had the IT department and the AP department together. And obviously they do very separate things, but they're all involved in the same process, if you like. One needs one person to perform, and the others needs them to perform as well. So we understand both sides of the coin. We kind of sit in the middle with it as mediators, if you like, at times, to get to the desired outcome, which was providing a platform for growth and streamlining, essentially. So, and certainly with AP professionals, we're looking to and anyone in the business really, we're looking to empower the forward thinkers, encourage innovation and change. Okay, because often we do need change, but we also need to get people on board with that change, because change can be quite scary, which can then create fantastic culture throughout, and will naturally improve mental health, staff retention, and then going on to my next slide in a second, it will naturally, those two key points, you know, your staff can't perform if they're not happy. The other thing to mention on this as well, this is why we are a partner of the Accounts Payable Association, so the AP Association, and there actually is a week next week, depending on when you're watching this, but the AP Appreciation. So we'll be doing a few things on there on our social media page, and they share the same values, and it's a huge community of like-minded professionals that have got similar problems, or they're looking for new ways of working, whatever that may be. So it's a good thing, and I encourage people to check it out and our involvement inside that as well. So this is obviously really where we come in massively, and simplifying and streamlining, that can mean lots and lots of different things to different people, depending on, I suppose, your exposure on technology, or not even technology, but just a good process, if you like. So what we do is typically we look to, from a consultancy perspective, so we look at the overall business, because there's different areas, as I said before, with the IT department and the accounts payable department, they need each other. So we look at what's been tried before, because there's no point going over what's been tried before, because obviously that didn't quite work. And then obviously what we're looking to achieve. So what's the problems, what's in place, etc., etc. Okay. Then we look to offer a demo proposal and look at what YourDMS can offer in terms of a solution based on the overall business, the consultancy, and then try and look at the sort of the project plan. So once we've got all the current documents, if we can look to get a project plan in place of what documents or data or people are involved with that, and make a plan together. Once that's all kind of agreed and everyone seems to be on the same page, and as I said, these meetings, or not just meetings, but these discussions are good to have with different people within inside of the organization, whether everyone thinks they're relevant or not. Approval process requires a manager from another department, as an example, so not just in the accounts payable department. And as I said, IT needs to be fairly involved with from an infrastructure perspective on occasions. So once that project plan and the scope with what we haven't covered already, because a large part of this will be covered from the consultancy of what you want, then the implementation we take care of and help with the hand-holding exercise, and then that leads on to the user acceptance training that we provide, and also that's to test the system and make sure everything's been implemented correctly, with full staff training. Before that goes generally from a go live perspective, and then onto our fantastic support team, which I'll talk about in a second. The training, the staff training, is really critical. Where we come into our own is essentially we look at the different areas within inside the business. So there's generations, so there's people that are really good with tech already, have exposure before, people that and then there's also people that maybe not had that exposure already. So we're very quick to identify those people and who may need an arm around their shoulder and a bit more time, to those who probably can be your sponsors on the ground and can help and sort of train the trainer type employee to really lift and elevate the business of where they need to go, and also be just that person to again handhold the rest of the business along with us. And again, with the go live and the aftercare team, businesses, everyone understands businesses evolve all the time. So businesses evolve all the time, so which means we need to be responsive, and we bring out upgrades and things like that with all of our softwares that we provide. But also you might start very small in terms of implementation of Simplify and Streamline, and then might grow, and as I said at the start, growing over a 10-year sort of period, whereby you can then look at that and add different processes in place. Just to mention with just some of the benefits, I mean, document management, as we've always said, is the most boring subject in the world, but it's really relevant when it turns to security, compliance, audit trails. You've got workflows, so electronic workflows where documents no longer need to be printed off or sent via emails, if you like. Not to mention then obviously the clever automation with OCR, so optical character recognition, we can do with your invoices where they come in via email and out the other end into your ERP system, providing all the checks and balances are in place, and it's been approved. Some of as I've said before, but some of the examples from our experiences would be, just as a small process would be to maybe bring a scanner on board onto your desk, or create a folder onto a desktop where invoices can be dragged into and viewed quickly. Writing to suppliers, potentially about purchase orders, numbers not being on invoices. That's quite a key one in terms of matching up. So doing that three-way match where you got the purchase order, the invoice, and the delivery note. Everyone's looking for that desired three-way matching, but often it's not always there because of different things, as I've covered before. And putting PDFs straight into a folder and not printing them out. And like I said, that's key from an email perspective, because I would say probably 95%. I was with a customer the last week and prospect this week. Probably 95% come through via email now with the dreaded pandemic happening. So we've got to be cautious of that. We're not duplicating work, because as soon as you print a document out from an email, it's still in your email, so you've duplicated that and you're trying to keep it the same. And this is the last sort of point in the sense of the accounts payable steps, going from good to great, and it's about elevating your brand. And this one I feel is often missed in terms of looking at supplier relationships. Are they being paid on time? Attracting quality staff all comes under this banner, if you like, down the road, where you may have services or products that is your flagship of your brand. So that's where your brand is making money. So whatever services or, like I said, products you provide, that's where your company is. But they are naturally like the front end of it. But what we're looking for is to recognize, and that might be then, if we're looking at the title, the good part of your organization and good part of your process. But if you want to look at the backbone and take the AP department as an example, they're really dealing with suppliers without the invoices getting approved, queries being actioned, and those are the suppliers will be chasing money, and those are the suppliers that will be recognizing, they're late with payment all the time, and they're a nightmare to get money from, or a nightmare to get this, and that. Their product's good, but those types of conversations, and they can have a knock-on effect to your brand. And this is where a clear internal process, maybe a document workflow equipped with notes, actions, can make you great. Because if a supplier rings up, you can tell that supplier immediately what's happening with that invoice without having to hang up on them or leave them on hold for 5 minutes, try and get hold of the person who's dealing with the query, and you can only imagine the delays that occurs. So you're trying to improve your company's reputation, the accounts payable department's reputation, because let's not beat around the bush there. The person who's on the phone is the accounts payable professional, but it might not be the person who's dealing with that query. So they're going to get the brunt of all the frustrations from the departments. So you can start get the recognition as the brand, as the company you deserve, from a back end perspective. And other businesses will slowly but surely want to deal with you. Suppliers will want to deal with you, especially if you're looking to change suppliers for whatever reason that may. You might be upselling, you might be upscaling, and the supplier can't produce enough goods for that growth. So therefore, you might have to change suppliers. But if they two know each other, they're going to give you a bad rep and say, well, they don't pay on time, as an example. So elevate your brand, I think, is really key, as well as the people part. So I'm going to recap on some points now. So we had number one was building on what you have already. So looking at your existing processes. And you're going to get a copy of this anyway, so people can go back. Number two was get data savvy. So bad data in, you're going to definitely get bad data out, because if it's on a computer in a system, it doesn't change unless you change it. Powering up your people, massively key. So empowering your forward thinkers, encouraging innovation, as I said, and change, because without getting people on board, setting that business case, building that relationship internally, you are not going to get people on board or using these systems, which people need to use technology as well as agreeing to a process change, whether that means technology is involved. Powering up your people, sorry, as I already said, powering up your people. So simplifying and streamlining, so that is with tech, workflow, document management, working with YourDMS from a consultancy perspective, and as I've just mentioned here, with elevating your brand. Okay, so supplier relationships, as well as just being a good company to deal with on all fronts. We'll go ahead and take some questions now. So just a reminder, please type your questions in the questions box in the control panel. But let's see what we've got. Sadie, have we got any questions at all?
Yes, we have a couple. So the first one says, and I think this is something you may have touched upon, we have an issue with suppliers not putting PO numbers on invoices. What would you recommend to deal with that?
Yeah, good question. So we always recommend an email to the supplier or a phone call. Obviously, naturally, you're going to have suppliers that you get on well with from a relationship. You might have had them for a long time, or you might know them from a previous role, whatever that may be. And you might not have asked the question why there's no PO numbers on an invoice. And if you are going more streamline, or even if you're not and it's just a manual process, you still have to go through that process of looking up what purchase order relates to this invoice. So it takes time regardless. So I always recommend getting in contact with them. So if you don't ask, you don't get. That's a classic example of that. So ask the question and see where you go. We've had massive successes, even from a digital transformation perspective, where it's quite critical that the information is on the page if a computer is trying to read it. But I think definitely ask the suppliers.
Okay, and we have one more question. When you've done projects before, do you generally end up replacing a lot of the systems people are used to using, or can you work with what they've already got?
Yeah, absolutely not. We definitely don't replace everything, unless obviously the business wants to. Or it's a startup, I guess, and they don't have the business. But no, definitely, because it's all about familiarity with people. A lot of people don't like change. There often are systems out there that are really good in certain areas and not so good in others. So trying to work with these systems that you've currently got is definitely more attractive than a tech company coming in and going, right, no, you don't need that, you need this. So I definitely think that is key to starting anything. It's the same principle as technology doesn't replace people at work job wise. I think that's also critical as well. It allows people to do other things, not doing the laborious tasks. You know, obviously, if you're looking to add to a team, you might not need to. That's a different conversation. But you're definitely not looking to replace a job role with this. The return on investment will come with lots of other avenues, like speed of processing, as I said, dealing with suppliers, upselling, things like that. So that's definitely it. What was the second part of that question, Sadie? Have I answered that all right?
Yeah, it was okay. Can you work with the systems they've already got?
Yeah, so just touch on that. So integrations, generally integrations are a lot easier nowadays. But we've got full team on site development wise. We've got technology partners that we've probably seen every single system out there in the world. So generally the integrations aren't as scary or aren't as complicated, should I say, as most people would think starting out on any sort of process change. So yeah, it's all about understanding and building that relationship with, again, like I said, IT or even a third-party supplier. Certainly from our perspective, getting familiar, getting friendly, starting that relationship building with the entire team. We don't have any enemies. All right. Any more? Or was that it?
That's it.
Cool. Okay. So just to end, obviously, if you do have any more questions, like I said, if you are watching this on demand or whatever, my details are on this slide that you can see there. I'm more than happy to pick up the phone. I prefer a phone call than an email, but if you prefer an email to a phone call, then do an email. It's not a problem. So it doesn't have to just be me, but email me, and we can talk. So just some of the things in terms of what we're looking to do after this is we're going to offer you a it could be on site, it could be AM, PM, whatever time round suits you. We do it over Teams, but just looking through, and we say human ray of sunshine, one of our experts will talk you through all our things, systems, processes, and future plans. So from a consultancy perspective, we will offer you some recommendations to help you get started if that's what you're looking to do and achieve. Again, we don't hassle you, we don't pester you after. If you say don't call me back till 6 months, that will be in my diary or in our diary to call you back in 6 months and not before. But obviously we're looking for anyone that needs help and advice. And again, there's plenty of conversation, 5-10 minute conversations I've had with people that have actually changed their systems going forward and gone away happy. So thanks for joining today, or thanks for joining us today, should I say. Keep our eyes peeled on LinkedIn. We're doing lots of these different webinars. Next one will probably be with one of our technology partners, but keep your eyes peeled with that. Give us some feedback. We're always keen for feedback. And yeah, hope to hear from you all soon. Thank you.